Hello there and welcome once again to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers. We're here every week meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues, and we welcome back the athletic director at Oklahoma.
Yeah, Joe's been on so many times I think he could do the show and we could be the guests. He's been on 19 times, more than anybody else by some considerable degree. We're really glad to have him back.
Yeah, and there's always topical things to talk about, and today's a great example. We'll be back with more of The Verdict. Joe Castiglione, our guest today.
Right now, 6 feet can feel like a long ways away. But from 6 feet, we can still smile at each other. From our doorways and our stairways, from opposite sides of the street and opposite sides of the country. Through fear and frustrations, we can remind each other that we are still here for each other. Because we can still smile at each other. And we're not going anywhere.
When I went over the first time was the USS Kearsarge, it was carrier. And the second one went around the world on USS Hornet. My name is Eugene R. Paler. I'm a Navy veteran of the United States Navy, and I am Chickasaw. It's really a good experience because you get to see how other people live. And I've never been to a country I'd trade for this United States of America. So that kind of puts a tear in my eye. I grew up here in this country. I grew up in Oklahoma. It gives you a pride in the United States of America. If somebody needs something, you'd go help them. It's a pretty good country. We're just a top-notch country, and the people are top-notch people.
See more stories about the Chickasaw people at profilesofanation.com.
Back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers. Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
As we indicated in the open, Joe Castiglione is back to join us for his 19th appearance on The Verdict. We've been on the air 20 years and he's been on 19. He'll catch up pretty quickly, I'm sure. Joe is in his 23rd year as athletic director at the University of Oklahoma. His teams have had remarkable success, 19 national championships, 93 conference titles. This is the 17th consecutive year that the athletic teams at the University of Oklahoma have maintained a 3.0 grade average or higher. And perhaps in this day of COVID, perhaps a more startling fact is that again this year, the University of Oklahoma athletic department continued its record of being self-sustaining, not only taking in enough money to support its programs, but also giving back to the university. Quite a remarkable record in these lean times in many places. We're really pleased to have you, Joe. Glad you're back.
Well, Kent, thank you very much. Mick, good to see you. I really feel like this is a little bit of a family reunion, even though I'd rather be there in person with you. But really enjoy being able to share this moment. Really kind of our, I don't know, 6th or 7th or 8th different set. So I've been there since the beginning, and I hope to keep going as long as you all have the show.
Joe, we mentioned the athletic department being self-sustaining. Certainly revenue had to be down. So, you've probably had years in the past where revenue was down. I don't know that. Perhaps you've had increasing revenue every year, but it had to certainly be a different environment for the people that handle your budget and are advising you on steps that you're going to have to take.
It's been an extraordinary year for everybody. I think it's impacted people in ways that we may never know for another few years, because this is not a one-year problem. It's going to carry on into the future years, at least giving us a chance to catch up. Hopefully the pandemic is over pretty quickly, but that being said, we are able to balance this year's budget only because we were putting money in a reserve for a while and didn't necessarily anticipate a pandemic, but we were always anticipating something that could happen to interrupt the business operations side of our department. And it's helped us, but it's been a significant revenue hit to our program, no doubt about it. I mean, major, more than we could have ever imagined. I mean, we had fewer events, even though we had a football season, basketball season, and we're having spring seasons. We haven't had more than 25% capacity in any one of those venues. We've played fewer games, so some of the revenue that we glean from media rights have been shaved back because we don't have as many events. And obviously, because of the reduction of capacity, that's not just hit us in the area of ticket sales, it's hit us in our annual giving as well. And that's a pretty big total. We've been able to modify, mitigate, whatever you want to call it, some of the impact because we've held back on hiring positions. Many of us took a salary reduction to try to keep others from having to experience one. And we've saved some money because we haven't traveled as many places or as far as we used to and usually go. Recruiting has been limited because of NCAA rules not allowing anybody to recruit off campus or anybody to come on campus as part of an official visit. So that saves some money. So all that has mitigated it to some degree, but I think everybody's creativity has helped as well. And we hope this is just a one-year anomaly. We'll talk about what the future might hold, but we're going to at least be able to balance the part of the budget we do have, and that will continue that streak that started back in the fiscal year of 2000.
Athletic directors, if things are going well, kind of stay out of the spotlight, but when there's a coaching vacancy, then all eyes go to the athletic director. You've been really busy. You've been in the spotlight a lot lately.
Well, that's true, but I actually try to get out of the spotlight doing those searches, as you all know. I sort of like a stealth bomber. I just fly way, way out of the radar of not, being impossible to detect. And that's necessary when we go through a search. I don't know that anybody's ever had to do two at the exact same time. At least it's not very apparent that anybody's had two at the exact same time and two major coaches. And then for us, we're replacing two legends on top of it. So I've been very pleased with the way that turned out. Love both of our coaches. Jenny Baranchek, our new women's basketball coach, came to us from Drake after an extended period of success there. Happened to be in her own hometown, although she played at the University of Iowa. She's from Des Moines originally. And then Porter Moser, and people familiar with his amazing run, magical run back in 2018, which wasn't that long ago, but and then what he's done since to keep the Loyola program at the top of their league and getting into NCAA tournaments. And he was doing that in his hometown. So it was a little bit of an extra effort trying to talk the two of them away from programs that they were beloved and in their hometown. But we've created the new hometown right here in Norman, Oklahoma, and we couldn't be happier to make them part of the Sooner family.
Joe, you have had a remarkable record of stability among head coaches at the University of Oklahoma. How long ahead of Coach Coles and Coach Kruger departing were you aware that they were going to probably be leaving about the same time?
I had a little notice on Coach Cole. Not very much notice on Coach Kruger. That being said, we have conversations throughout the year after every season. So I had a hint that maybe Coach Kruger wasn't necessarily going to go 4 or 5 more years. I didn't know it would be the end of this year when he decided to retire. And Coach Cole let me know as we were winding down the season that she was thinking about it, wanted to get through the tournament first and then make a final decision. But, as an AD and any leader, you have to have that confidentiality, the ability to have those deep type of conversations with your head coaches or staff. They know that you're a trusted sounding board. And so I've always had that with my coaches, and I think that's important. But that's all the notice I had. But leave it to Oklahoma to embrace it, figure out how we had to go about doing it. And we did it at a time when several other programs were trying to get those two candidates that we ended up hiring as our coaches, get them interested in coming to their place. So it was a very competitive and very challenging time to navigate the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this, I didn't call candidates for one search or the other by somebody else's name. So I kind of count that as an extra win. I didn't embarrass myself because I literally was getting off of one call or a Zoom call with a candidate for one of the sports and going on another Zoom call with another. So it was quite a juggling act, but it was fun at the same time.
Yeah. Are there search firms or consultants that an athletic director can use to kind of help create a short list?
Sure there is. We use a search firm in this particular case, not necessarily to create the names, but they can do that if you ask them. But for us, we had the names of the people we wanted to at least pursue, and they do several other searches. So a lot of times they know information about some of the names an institution might bring to the table, and not only something about it, but a little bit more of the background. And that's why I choose to use a search firm, because we're trying to get a deep dive about each candidate in a really compressed period of time. We don't have very many days to do this. It's not like hiring other positions on campus. Sometimes those take a month, 2, 3, 6 months, when you're hiring a big provost or somebody, a big dean search, they take many, many months. We don't have that kind of opportunity in athletics, particularly when the hiring world is so competitive. And then in our case with basketball, you have other factors where recruiting is going on. Now we have a transfer portal, so you're trying to move this as quickly as possible because you want the current team to be sure they know who their new coach is, and that new coach can get with the team and get them focused on going forward. So there are a lot of different dynamics in athletics that they don't have in other areas of a campus. But the search firm helps get that type of background check done in a very quick way. And when you go through it, Mick, sometimes you find things out that you would never have known otherwise, obviously in somebody's background, but you find out about contractual complications. Maybe they're interested in the job, but their contract doesn't work as well, trying to extricate them from one university to go to the next. They may have family considerations at the time. When we're trying to hire, we're 3 or 4 years earlier or 3 or 4 years later, those aren't necessarily considerations. So there could be a variety of things that you can work through. And the one thing I will add in closing, that the involvement of agents now, it's not necessarily brand new, but every candidate has an agent, and I'm including assistant coaches in that comment. Every single one has an agent, and they're all calling. And sometimes the agent is calling, advocating for more than one candidate because they have a pool of candidates. So when we're trying to move through the search in a very expeditious period of time, you need some extra people involved to try to help manage some of that influx of calls.
Our guest is Joe Castiglione. We'll be back with more on The Verdict right after this.
OU Law has a history and heritage that are unparalleled. At the University of Oklahoma College of Law, we empower our students to pursue the career of their dreams. We have the highest U.S. News ranking ever achieved by an Oklahoma law school. We are the first law school in the country to launch a college-wide digital initiative. And this year, our competition teams rank #2 in the nation. OU Law, generations of excellence, limitless possibilities.
When I came to work for the ODVA, I started realizing the opportunity to take care of veterans. It's a powerful thing when you realize that you are taking care of people that made history.
Working here is a calling. It's really, really important that they don't just come here to exist. We want to give them meaning to their lives. We try to make life happy and meaningful and fulfilled for our veterans.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Meyers and our guest, Joe Castiglione.
Joe, talk a little bit about Coach Moser from Loyola that you got in for the men's basketball program. I know you used to carry a list in your pocket. I imagine it's getting a little shredded at the moment. But was he on your list when you saw this vacancy come? How did you zero in on him?
He certainly was, Kent, and so was Jenny, for that matter. I didn't know Coach Moser personally. We have actually a lot of mutual friends and or acquaintances in the business that we didn't know about until we started talking, including his best friend is a brother-in-law of a very close friend of mine. How do you know these things until you get to talk? But I obviously watched him lead his Loyola team to the 2018 Final Four, really on the threshold of getting to the national championship game itself. And then what he's done, resurrecting a program that had a great history, but goes back to the early 60s when they did win a national championship. But they went like 30 years and only had maybe 2 winning seasons until he came along and literally not just turned it around, but put it back on the map of the best in college basketball. And it wasn't just that one year. He's been successful many years in winning that league. We saw what he did in this year's NCAA tournament in upsetting a team that many picked to go all the way to the national championship game with a chance to win it all. And so, he wasn't an unknown rocket star, and I say that because he was on everybody's radar screen. But it's trying to find the people who fit what we want to accomplish at the University of Oklahoma, fit the way in which we want to accomplish it, which speaks directly to the culture that we have and that we're always pouring in to make it better, that works, with people in a very special way, can recruit the best and the brightest in the country, and come in and compete in a basketball league that many rank at the top of college basketball year in and year out. At least it's in the same sentence with a Big Ten or an ACC or an SEC or even a Big East. It was just predominantly focused on basketball. So you have that kind of level of opportunity, and you want somebody that's matched their passion and their skill set to make it work, and he did. And I could say in many ways the same for Jenny Baranczyk. We haven't had a coaching change in women's basketball in over 25 years, so that was a little bit new. And but as I mentioned earlier, replacing a legend, a Hall of Fame coach like Sherry Cole is somebody that can come here and get our program back into that hunt for Final Fours and a national championship like we had during Coach Cole's years. And with Coach Moser replacing, I think, another legend, a future Hall of Fame coach in Lon Kruger. I heard that he has heard a statement that somebody made that I think really wraps up how well respected Coach Kruger is throughout college basketball and much of our modern day history. They call Coach Kruger your favorite coach, your favorite coach's favorite coach is what they say, because that's how well liked he is. And so we found two that I think are going to be favorites amongst OU fans, favorites amongst their peers, because they win at a high level and they do it the right way.
Joe, so much of the revenue that comes into college sports comes through the NCAA football playoff and the NCAA basketball playoffs in both men and women's. This year, of course, they had to undergo some different formats, holding the events in even one city when it came to basketball. What did we learn through this whole process? Are there any takeaways, or did we learn anything that we might institute in the future, even when we're not coming out of a health crisis?
It's a great question, Nick. I think we learned a lot. We learned a lot about ourselves first, that we can face, in some ways, it felt like an insurmountable challenge, and figure out how to navigate safely to allow for practice and competition. I think sometimes just having games was an achievement that maybe people just took for granted. And there was a time last summer where we were on a threshold of shutting down all sports. And that's not hyperbole, it was there, because you remember, a couple of conferences decided they weren't going to play football, and some others were talking about whether or not they could play themselves. But we listened to the medical experts, we listened to the best that science can offer us, and we listened to the people that are involved on our campuses, most notably our student athletes, who said that they really wanted to play if we could find a safe path to navigate practice and competition. So I think we learned a lot about ourselves, that we could take the best that science has to offer, understand what we needed to do to protect everybody involved, and still find a way to enjoy life, even if it was awkward at times, even if you didn't get tested many times during the week. And we had plenty of great medical care, medical support around us that sometimes I think they were some unsung heroes in all of this. They certainly deserve a lot of credit. So you start there, and anything above that was, in a sense, a bonus. But what we've learned, we can have a championship format. In the case of basketball, we learned that we can bring many teams to one site and have the contest take place at several places, maybe around a city. And that kind of provided a fun little glimpse of what might be possible in the future. We're not sure if that will happen or in what form it will take, because I know people do value having these championships or championship type events at other places around the country so people can have access to them. But there was something to be said for, a single city format. I think we've learned a lot in the area of recruiting that I think will change the rules going forward, because we've been recruiting the future student athletes on our campus virtually. We still don't have yet, anyway, the opportunity to go off campus and see prospective student athletes in their normal environment.
Yeah, Joe, we're going to have to interject and move on. Thanks so much for being on The Verdict this week.
Hey, it's my pleasure.
Thanks again. Look forward to number 20.
Kent and I'll have a final word when we get back.
It used to be okay in teachers' lounges. It used to be okay in maternity wards. It was okay in sporting arenas, college campuses, and office spaces. But now that we understand the deadly dangers of secondhand smoke, that's not okay anymore. So why is it okay that thousands of employees are exposed to it every day at work? Bottom line, it's not okay. Let's protect hardworking Oklahomans. Join the fight at stopswithme.com.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
I think for us, once we got started and we began to see the tremendous need just within our state, it really was just a calling for us. The blessings far outweigh any obstacles that we've faced.
You will always be mom and dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
Back, wrapping up a show with Joe Castiglione.
Always nice to have Joe on, and thanks to Jan Meeks in his office for setting it up. She's always great to accommodate us.
Yeah, absolutely, and we have a couple of websites to give you. First of all, you can find more about Joe and the Sooner program at Soonersports.com. That's Soonersports.com. And we have a website, theverdict.tv. Log on and tell us about a guest you'd like to see or a topic you'd like to see covered down the line. Our appreciation to Joe Castiglione and the OU Athletic Department. Kent and I'll be back next week with another episode of The Verdict.